And then Barb, I am going to share your, and I want to go File, Full Screen, View, Full Screen. So Barb, I am going to pass it on to you for tips for transitioning, building momentum for Quality Matters implementation at your institution. So thank you. And you can just tell me when to go to the next screen, next slide. And
I will. Thank you, Jim. Welcome, everyone. Oh, we went down to 98, so we have a couple slots, so there may be a couple more people joining us. I'm glad you're all here this afternoon. I'm Dr. Barb Altman. I'm Associate Professor of Management at the College of Business Administration at Texas A&M University Central Texas, which is actually located in Killeen, Texas, right next to Fort Hood. I actually live in Austin, though, which is about an hour from Killeen. Killeen is about an hour just northwest of Austin. And the temperature here today is 55, but it is sunny, but we are supposed to get cold for us in the next few days, actually a low one night of like 19. So I know for those of you in the upper Midwest, that's like nothing. And my husband's originally from Montreal, so he enjoys living in Austin. I saw somebody had moved from Canada, so, but my in-laws are still there, so they're suffering in the Montreal winter. But enough about the weather. So let me just talk a little bit about how I came to this presentation today. I have been a Quality Matters research colleague for 3 years now, since 2016, which means that I work with Kay Shattuck and Bethany on a number of research projects. There's quite a few of us. And the project that we've been working on for the last few years is how are Quality Matters institutions progressing along the continuum of excellence, which is actually a change model that Dr. Deb Adair, head of QM, came up with, because we know this is a big implementation effort at many institutions. And some people are not geared up to realize the resistance that you may come across in trying to implement QM at your institution. And so my PhD is actually in organizational behavior, and I've done a lot of work with organizations around change management. So that's why I've been heavily involved in this initiative. And we did get 2 papers published last year. So if you want to email me at some point, my email is here, altman@tamu.cdu. I'm sure they are in the research library somewhere, but they're pretty new. So I would be more than happy to send you the links if you want to email me. But this is an ongoing research project, so you will be hearing more about it.
It's pretty clear that.
So Jim, let's go to the next slide. So I want to know a little bit about you all and what role you're playing in implementation of Quality Matters at your institutions. So if you could put in the chat real quickly, your role at your university and 1 or 2 words that describe your institution's QM implementation. Faculty, IDs, QMC, project manager. At the beginning of a long road. I'll give you some tips. So a whole lot of QM coordinators. Wow, faculty with 25 reviews under your belt. Good for you, John. Trying to build interest again. Master reviewer, awesome. Hard to make faculty support it. Hear that a lot. Okay, so done some internal reviews and trying to move on from there. Associate Vice Chancellor, awesome. Hoping to get it back on track. Okay, great. Thank you for that input. And I feel good that some of the things that I'm going to present today may be helpful for you all, particularly that are starting. Maybe, you know, the effort got off track and you're trying to get it back on track. So Jim will go to the next slide. So my goals today are to help you achieve a better understanding of what challenges QM implementation can be. So give some credibility to some of the things that you all are feeling and perhaps a little bit frustrated by your efforts, and give you some helpful hints and tips to take back to your campus to hopefully make implementation a bit easier. And we'll go to the next slide. So this is the Continuum of Excellence that has now been published multiple times, either by Deb Adair and Kay Shattuck, or myself and a few of the other QM research colleagues. It shows 5 different phases that organizations move through. And this is sort of the textbook example of both a change management model and coupled with technology, a little bit more of a technology focus and diffusion of innovation model. So it's got a bit of both, and I'll talk in a few minutes about what of each of these phases actually mean. So we can move on to the next slide, Jim. So that wonderful, you know, very nice looking trajectory that is shown in the Continuum of Excellence is just that. It's textbook. It's not how most things play out. Okay. In reality, in the real world, change management is messy, can be very frustrating, is often full of fits and starts, often fails. It takes superb leadership. It takes setting a vision and sticking to it. It takes what I call intestinal fortitude, which means that you have a thick skin and are used to getting beat up and just being able to move on. And there are some organizations that are better at change than others, particularly like high-tech organizations that are more flexible and adaptive and can change easily. I'm assuming most everyone on this seminar is involved in higher education, either a community college or four-year institutions. Higher education does not change easily. You would think that they would, because they're the ones that are responsible for new thinking and innovation, but no. Higher education institutions typically are very, very, very resistant to change. So that in itself explains some of what we're up against with QM implementation. Okay, next slide. So some of you all may have seen this before if you've ever taken an organizational behavior class. This is a model by John Cotter, who is one of the leading theorists in change management theory. He is also a consultant to many organizations all over the world. He's written a lot of other books that you may have heard of, more like Who Moved My Cheese? And this is his model of organizational change. It involves 8 different steps. Setting a sense of urgency for the change, a guiding team, developing a vision, getting buy-in, empowering action, celebrating short-term wins, don't let up, keep going, and then finally making change stick. Another one that is this pretty model and talks about some of the things that you need to do along the way and can work, but you've got to stick to it. So next slide. So this is the reason that I called the presentation today Tips for Transitioning. Because often when change initiatives are talked about, you just talk about the change and the vision of where you're going, and people don't think about the psychological bases of why people are resistant to change, okay? The psychological bases of why people are resistant to change is that they like the status quo and they do not like the uncertainty of moving to a different status quo. Okay. So change is the external situation where you're trying to get to a new business strategy or a merger or a new board of directors, or in our case, institutionalize online quality, hoping to get an institution to where they really value online learning and online teaching and using Quality Matters as a tool to get you there. Okay, so transition is the inner psychological process that people go through as they come to terms with a new situation. Okay. So people have to experience an ending of sort of letting go of old models and old ways of thinking, and then enter into a new neutral zone, which is a lot of uncertainty before they're willing to accept the change and move on. So change will only be successful if change agents and leaders address that transition that people experience. Okay, next slide. Okay, so knowing that change isn't easy and that transition is particularly problematic, you can redraw this slide with not as clear a trajectory. And certainly between the first and second stages and the second and third stages, it's a much higher hill to climb. As you get to the point of having more continuous improvement and benchmarking and get a little traction, it is a little bit easier. So those first phases are where you're going to see the biggest resistance to change because people aren't acknowledging that there's an ending there. Next slide, please, Jim. Okay, so this gives more of an explanation of what those stages are in the Quality Matters Continuous of Excellence. That first stage is when you just start to introduce what quality assurance means in online education and starting to set expectations, providing resources, starting to do some training, just trying to get some traction. Okay. The next stage is quality assurance. So you're getting a little bit more traction, a little bit more people acknowledging that quality assurance is probably a good way to do it. You start thinking about how we're going to roll this out throughout the institution. Third is when you're getting a lot more traction and you can see continuous improvement. Fourth is where you're looking towards how do we really look at this data and help it move along, and you want to showcase your successes very much. And then the fifth stage is where you really have a culture change. So thank you. You guys read ahead, and I wanted you to put the number in the chat of where you think your institution is. And 0 is an acceptable response, because I'm going to talk about it in just a minute. That there's a lot of pre-work that goes into this. So there is a stage 0 before 1. Lots of 2s, a few 3s, good for you. 0.5, unsure, that's a very valid response. 2.5. 2, okay. Okay, thank you for your input on that. Lots of 1s and 2s, a few 3s. One thing I'll comment on in a little bit is no 4s or 5s. And I will comment on that in just a minute or a few minutes. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, Jim, please. So I talked about needing a stage 0. Okay, stage 0 is the pre-work before you even get started, and that's conceptualizing your change effort. You need a vision, you need an implementation plan. What are your goals? A sample could be that within a 3-year time frame, our university will demonstrate a clear commitment to quality online teaching and student success in the online environment. And you're going to start tracking, you need data. So you're going to start tracking how many faculty have taken professional development trainings, how many have done an internal review, how many have done some kind of external review. Have you gotten to the point where you're having programs, full programs that are QM certified? Is that even a goal? And what is the time frame of any of this? Next slide, please. So this is a little bit harder, okay? Not that establishing a vision and figuring out where you want to get to within a certain period of time isn't hard. This takes some reflection of where your university is at with online learning. A lot of people that are involved with Quality Matters, and I'm sure many of the people in our Zoom room today have been working in the online environment for many years. We had a lot of institutions last year when the pandemic hit that hadn't really been doing much online learning at all and had to pivot quickly. And that was what you would call a radical change. Because if you had nobody in the institution that understood online learning, you really didn't know it. Just kind of as an aside, at A&M Central Texas, where I teach, we have been doing online for many, many years because we are there with Fort Hood, and we often will have soldiers that will deploy in the middle of the semester, and we have to figure out a way to get there, have them finish their classes, and then once they're deployed. So we've been doing online in a serious way for 10 years. And while we aren't as far along on the QM curve as I would like to be, we're just starting on an effort to get our first program fully certified. We do have a culture in our institution that online needs to be as quality courses as any of the FACE courses. But when we started the effort, it was a radical change. We had professors who really only taught face-to-face before, didn't have a very good opinion of online, and it was a radical change at the time, 10 years ago. And for some of the organizations that were caught short a year ago with the pandemic and had only been doing on-ground classes, it also was a radical change. But for some institutions that have been doing online for a while and you just need to up the quality, it may be more of an incremental change and not a radical or transformational change. The other issue is, are you doing this in an anticipatory way or a reactive way? So reaction is response to a crisis. Anticipatory is seeing that, you know, online is the future, okay? And then a number of you mentioned in the chat initially that you were seeing resistance. That is consistently what we hear from people implementing Quality Matters across the country. When I first was responsible for implementing Quality Matters at my institution, you know, I thought some faculty were going to slash my tires. They were not happy, and I was not well liked. I was brought in from the outside to do it, so that didn't help either. I had been involved in Quality Matters at my previous institution, University of North Texas, and was a pioneer faculty in doing online teaching at UNT. So when I was hired at A&M Central Texas, I already had, I was already a Quality Matters peer reviewer. And when I interviewed and they told me they wanted me to institute online learning within the College of Business, I said, I made one of the conditions that we join Quality Matters. The Faculty Senate at the time actually did a resolution saying they were against this effort, and myself and also very new at the time, Director of Distance Education, were at that faculty meeting, and we were no egregious things were said to us personally, but there was just a lot of really misconceptions about what online learning is all about. I see Megan has in the chat that she's trying to do the same thing and her university isn't happy. Yeah, you need a thick skin. Yeah, you definitely need a thick skin. I had a little bit more credibility than our new instructional designer, our new director of distance learning, because I actually had a faculty appointment, so that helped a little bit. But it was really not easy at the first. People need to remember that faculty are very unique beings. They're used to having total autonomy on their classrooms. Think about it. In a face-to-face classroom, the professor really does have total autonomy. Autonomy over their syllabus, autonomy over what materials they use, autonomy over what those assessments are. And, you know, teaching online is the first time that there's potentially other players involved in that, an instructional designer as part of the team. If you are looking to mandate that those courses get reviewed, they get very nervous about that, even though it was very clear from the first that this is all about design, not delivery. But even some of the design elements in terms of whether you have current readings and that sort of thing gets over into their bailiwick. So, you know, everybody wants to run up the flag of academic freedom related to not having other people mess with their courses and their classrooms. But if you go back and read what academic freedom really means, it's all about research. It's not about teaching. So you'll hear people use that flag of academic freedom and don't engage, because you'll just not win the argument. But just remember that it's really not relevant and they're just feeling very threatened. Okay, so part of this is just sort of seeing what's this level of change that you are about to undertake. Who are the implementers? I know a lot of you that are QM coordinators never signed up to be a change agent, and here you are. And so who are the implementers, and do they understand what change and transition is all about? A critical one, do you have the budget and resources to do this? You know, it costs money to train people. It costs money to do at least official reviews. And you need the budget and resources to do that and really be able to move along the curve. And you need some people that are pretty well placed in the organization to be your champions. One thing that really helped me at the time is that our provost was incredibly supportive of this and started getting out among the faculty and said, you know, we need to do this, and this is why, because it's the future. We did it as an anticipatory, just because, you know, it was the future and we needed to do it to serve our soldiers. And so, and she really helped because she really was a champion. Okay, next slide. Okay, so another part of this pre-work is identifying all your relevant stakeholders. Who needs to buy into this change effort? Who do you need to sit with and get their support up front? Okay, and there are potentially a lot of them. Next slide. Okay, so stage one, which is sort of introducing quality. You want to assemble your team and appoint a go-to person. Those people need to have already been trained on quality matters. Your champion needs to articulate the vision. You know, I need to identify who on the faculty could potentially be early adopters. There's always a few here and there in each college who usually are more risk takers and understand that this is important, okay? You need to include all the stakeholders in conversation and gain their buy-in. And you need to start getting faculty to actually take workshops on applying the QM rubric, and that will really help dispel some of the myths about what quality matters is or isn't, and again get people over that ending stage and their anxiety about the change. Okay, next slide. So some of the tips that we have learned from our research in terms of things that help moving from stage one to stage two is establishing some of a sense of urgency. If there's some kind of a mandate from the state system, that in itself can be establishing that urgency. Incentives. We've seen a lot of data that shows if faculty take their course through a QM review and they meet all the standards, then they get some kind of a bonus or some kind of a stipend. Also, faculty getting credit for it in their promotion and tenure is another big one that makes a difference and sends a signal how important it is. Having faculty at your institution talk to faculty at other institutions. I did this early on. I had faculty at A&M Central Texas talk to people at UNT who were using Quality Matters, and that really helped in terms of a peer saying that, yeah, this is really okay. You want to build coalitions who are in support and support you in terms of what you're trying to do. You want to celebrate those small wins. So when the very first class passes a review, you want to make a big deal of it. Okay. And you need to have some empathies to the reasons behind whether there's so much resistance. You know, just when you want to kill some faculty or slash their tires, you've got to step back and say, okay, I get it. This is a big change for them. I need to give them some time. Okay, next slide. So stage 2, structuring the process. Fit your QM path to the needs and goals of your institution. You may find that your implementation plan was too aggressive. You may need to scale it back a little bit. It is meant to be a dynamic document. Okay, make sure you use every QM tool available. Okay, and you know, things like syllabus templates and all sorts of things like that that are available, and you know, use that too to expand the early adopters group. Some of the research papers that show that quality online classes really help learners succeed just as well as face-to-face classes can be really good there. Faculty are super responsive to seeing data and seeing research studies. Okay. And if possible, train instructional designers on applying the rubric and designing with Quality Matters. Your instructional designers are a critical part of the coalition. Okay, next slide. So just keep swimming. Those of you who have kids or you had kids, you know where this comes from, and you just got to keep your head above water and keep your patience and remember that this is important work. Okay, so moving to stages 3 and 4 was there a vision established? If not, there needs to be, and how widely communicated has it been? And it might need to be communicated some more. Okay. Figure out pieces of the university, which college and which department seems to be struggling and not sending anybody to training or not doing anybody reviews, and see if you can meet with the administrators of those departments and some key faculty with one-on-one interventions. Okay. And recognize it's not a trajectory, as I said before, but there's going to be fits and starts, and patience is, I realize, challenging, but required. I'm not the most patient person, and you really need patience when it comes to this work. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the next couple of slides are stages 4 and 5, which I know nobody identified that they were at those stages. So we're still learning what these stages look like, okay? And one thing is you want to use QM data to evaluate what you have done and where you're going. And you want to use QM data to convince those people that still aren't part of the coalition to come on board. You want to ask faculty for feedback. What do they need more help with? Okay. You want to reach out to QM research. As like I said before, some of these studies can really help. and particularly some of the before and after studies. And you can also incorporate student feedback. You can see how their student evaluations from online classes are looking, and maybe even do an independent survey of students, because it's hard to get access to course evaluation data. That's another thing that faculty aren't very good at sharing. But you can work with your student affairs and maybe do a separate feedback survey of students and how they are liking and reacting to their online courses. Next slide. So as I said, moving to these highest stages, we have hypotheses about what it takes to get there, but we have very few cases of people that are at the later stages of 4 or 5. So if that makes any of you feel any better, I hope that helps. This is not easy work. There's a lot of people that are at stage 2 and 3, and very few that have gotten to 4 and 5. Even in my institutions where we've been at this 10 years, I can honestly say my college is at stage 4, but the other ones are still at 2 or 3. Okay. QM right now, myself and 2 other research colleagues are undertaking a new study this year to specifically look at institutions that have gotten further along that curve and see what are the tips and what are some of the enablers that allow you to get to those later stages. Next slide, please. So this is one of those later stages where you're going to be recognizing all the courses that have been certified and getting that out in a big way with a big splash, and maybe on social media and on your websites and all those sorts of things. You want to promote faculty achievements and recognize those in meaningful ways. And you want to share it if you're part of a system, or with your larger community. Okay. Hopefully at this point, you're not just having small wins, but big wins, like some program reviews. Next slide. Okay, and this is the last phase where you feel like you really do have a culture change that is supportive of online quality and a commitment to quality assurance on online learning. Again, you're going to be promoting the faculty and their accomplishments. You're going to look at your implementation plan, and if it's been achieved, what are the goals that are going to sustain the momentum? There's always change in faculty and bringing new faculty online and getting them trained. You want to figure out ways to make the change stick and ways to branch out to different parts of the organization if they aren't quite there yet. Next slide. So that's the end of my formal presentation. I got through that a little bit quicker than I thought I would, but that's okay. Questions? Are we allowed to unmute people, Jim? Can people talk, or do we just take questions in the chat?
They have their own power to unmute if they want as well. So yes, they can. You can ask questions in vocally or through the chat.
I'd rather
Barbara,
do it.
Barbara
Okay.
and Jim, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
We were talking a little bit about buy-in, and you told us that your provost was really receptive to the implementation. What would be your advice for somebody who has a provost who's kind of stuck on teleconferencing education and synchronous sessions?
Well, is there anybody in the upper administration, maybe a dean, maybe not somebody at the provost level, but a dean who seems supportive? You've got to find a champion. If it's not a provost, it needs to be somebody else that's pretty high up in administration.
Perfect. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Barbara, Dale Mackay from Southern State Community. We're kind of at 2 to 2 3/4. One of the things trying to do is incorporate the recognition in the incorporating that's kind of, you know, we're recognizing that people are going training, we're recognizing that they are getting certifications for peer review, and they're doing peer review, and making that part of our frequent and small wins,
Uh-huh.
are we getting ahead of ourselves?
No, not at all. I mean, those small wins can help along at any stage. Yeah, no, you're not getting ahead of yourself. This is, like I said, this is not a clear path, and everyone has a different path. So if that path is working for you, stick with it. I love your horse.
Thank you. My first tip to someone.
There was a question in the chat. I was thinking
sure.
of marking on the public syllabi courses that are QM certified when appropriate. Is this a good idea or no?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Jim? I didn't quite catch it.
I was thinking of making on the public syllabi courses that are QM certified when appropriate. Is that a good idea or no?
Oh, no, it's a good idea. You want to put it out there. You want to give people recognition in any way you can. And you want, chairs and deans and provosts to, in a faculty meeting, publicly thank that person and give them recognition for having their course pass QM. Did that answer the question? Yeah, you want to make it public. Absolutely. There's other people that'll sort of jog them and think, okay, well, those people think this is important. Yeah. Well, and somebody put in having QM certified courses is a great marketing tool. And I'm on our accreditation working group. And I have to tell you, it really helps with our accreditors too. We're a SACS COC school, with SACS is one of the hardest accreditors. And then we currently have single A accreditation for our business school, and we're going for double A. And being able to say that we're a quality matters school and we have this certain number of courses certified, and we're trying to get our MBA program through the program review, they really respond to that stuff. What would be your advice on an institution that is faculty centered? Miriam, can you say more? I mean, I think every institution's faculty centered, so I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Yeah. Let me expand. So I mean, I work in a liberal arts college where it's really faculty centered. So any initiative, or I would say, let's use the word order, coming from above, usually is a little bit, I would say not well received. Mm-hmm. So I would like your advice on how to, in a place where faculty already is not embracing, this rubrics. And
so have the faculty been, let me ask you a couple questions. Have the faculty been teaching online at all, or is this really, okay.
Only after the pandemic.
Okay, so you started last year, so it was very much a reactive situation. Okay. Reactive situations, they're good in one way, in that it sets up that sense of urgency, and a sense of urgency does get people to change quickly, but it also means that their anxiety level is really high. And let's face it, everybody's anxiety level was super high with the pandemic because we didn't know what we were entering into. So you've got to realize that people are very anxious and need a lot of hand holding. They really do. And I just, on a personal level, our institution had no problem pivoting because everybody had already been trained online. But I live in Austin, and I have very close friends that are on the faculty of a very large institution that I will not name. And many of them had never taught online at all before. So they were scrambling. A lot of the big flagship institutions were really scrambling to get people trained. And some of the first classes that were done right after the pandemic, and you saw it from QM, they were not online classes. They were remote emergency instruction, where people were just taking their face-to-face classes and putting it on Zoom. So it wasn't what any of us who have been trained in quality matters would consider to be a quality online course. So in some ways, at the beginning of the pandemic, the whole quality online world took a bit of a hit because people were associated those remote emergency instruction classes as online and thinking that the quality was awful. I think we've evolved from that somewhat, because as institutions that were caught in a reactive mode have moved along, although I'm getting a sense from you, Miriam, that maybe your institution has not moved along. Just, you know, are hoping for the good old days when they can go back to the classroom.
Exactly.
Yeah, and haven't signed on to that you really can put together a really, really good quality online class. Yeah, if they're just bemoaning and wanting wanting to go back to the classroom, you got a challenge. I don't, yeah, you do have a challenge. It's
Thank
interesting
you.
because I'm used to faculty who are the most resistant. Once they realize they can put a quality online class together, they get really excited. It's like, ooh, I can teach this way in the summer and be able to travel. Have they not realized some of the advantages at all of it?
No. Yeah, especially younger faculty is more open to the
They're
benefits,
probably
and
more tech savvy too.
Yes, exactly. But you have senior faculty that still hope to come back to normal as soon as possible. So it's a little bit hard to say that as an institution we are embracing it. We have, like, I would say, different populations within the faculty that are more either open or totally closed.
Some of those people may never change. I hate to say that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to say, it sounds awful, but we had faculty like that, and most of them have subsequently retired. Yeah, that's an awful thing to say, but that's kind of the way it's played out.
Thank you so much.
Other questions? Well, I think that we will get you out of here early and you can take a bit of a break and be able to jump on to the next session online and hopefully get a spot. Thank you, Jim, for your help. And thank you, everybody, for participating again. Please reach out to me on altman@tamuct.edu if I can help you with any of your initiatives. Take care.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
I will stop the recording.